Good morning, everybody. It's great to be here with you. What a beautiful day we've got for it, and a packed room. And I'm Conor Delanbanque, the CEO and founder at Strategio, and I'm proud that our company is also presenting this panel with you all. So, in terms of Strategio, we are on a mission to improve diversity, equity, and inclusion for underserved and underrepresented communities in enterprise IT. Now, in terms of myself, I mentioned I'm the CEO and founder. I'm also on the Forbes 30 Under 30 list for education and social impact. I take a massive passion in helping people break into the technology industry and get their first career jobs in financial services companies. I get the pleasure of doing that all across Canada, the US, and Latin America, and we've done that over the last few years. That's enough about me and my company, and I want to talk more about what we're going to be talking about today. So, if you think back just a few years ago, the way we ordered cabs, taxis, the way we booked our hotel rooms, the way we spoke to each other, the way that we did financial services, whether it's things like buying and trading stocks or savings accounts, checking accounts, and everything else. The world has changed so much in the last few years. And today, the competition is hotter than ever. There's pressure, whether it's coming from your left and right, if you're a large enterprise financial services company, it could be the other banks, wealth management companies, asset managers, and others that you're competing to move faster, to deliver software at a higher quality or quicker than your competitors. It could be the way that you communicate internally and try and collaborate as a team. It could be the way that you move around and travel and do immigration services, the HR, the list goes on. We know these pressures. But then let's also realize we're here at a fintech conference. That's not only the big players, that's the new players, those that are coming up and chasing us down. How do we innovate? How do we move forward quickly? Speed is everything, but quality must be there as well. And if we look at it, we can implement the newest tools and technologies, but if our processes and our people aren't aligned, we're never going to get anywhere. So we really have to think about our workforces. How do we attract modern and new talent? Because some of the teams we have are leaving the organizations. Some of the people maybe had skills that were fit for years ago, and they maybe need to reskill and upskill and train. It might be that when we hire great talent, we can't keep them because of the competitors. So as part of this, we're going to talk in great detail with some of my peers on this stage. But let's look to who they are now and hear their introductions. Simona, if you wouldn't mind leading us.
Of course, thank you for the introduction. Bonjour tout le monde, je suis ravie de vous présenter, d'être ici avec mes collègues chevronnés et de vous introduire dans notre monde. I've joined the National Bank some 6 years ago after a career about 20 years in high tech, in AI specifically. And I've joined the bank in AI strategy role, and I'm now leading a conversational AI team of scientists, AI scientists for the Cloud Contact Center at the National Bank. So the perfect playground for generative AI.
Hi, I'm Bill. Merci de nous avoir invités aujourd'hui. I initially joined Morgan Stanley over 20 years ago, so I've been in the financial industry for that long, a very long time. En 2018, j'ai déménagé à Montréal from New York, and to take on some additional responsibilities here and join our management committee here.
And I'm David Ouellet. I'm Chief Technology, Data, and Operation Officer. I'm working at PSP Investment, maybe like just PSP Investment, what it is, like it's not Morgan or National Bank. We have like two big missions. One is to invest to secure the retirement of like 900,000 Canadian. And to do that, we invest like around $270 billion. And the new mission that PSP was delegated through CGF is to actually invest to decarbonize the Canadian economy. For that, we have like $15 billion to invest. So talent is clearly a big topic at PSP right now by building CGF on top of that. So.
Thanks, everybody. I think we've got a great group here on stage. Now, before we start with some of the questions for the group, I think let's assess the room very briefly. Put your hand up and keep it up if you think artificial intelligence is important to you or your organization now or in the next 5 years. Keep your hand up if you think your company is prepared for the changes that are coming. some half confident and some confident. So it's like some people are like, I do, but I don't want anyone to see me. And others are like, I'm all the way. There's about 5 or 6 that are confident. I respect you all, by the way. That's great. But let's dive straight into it. You know, we've got someone here next to me, Simona, that's working on natural language processing, artificial intelligence in one of the top banks in Canada. So in a high skill demand area like AI, how do you even hire, find, and when you find them, how do you retain that type of talent?
Very good question. So I would have to say that there are 3 pillars to it. Number 1 would be to ensure that you create an environment where these AI specialists can thrive. That means having stimulating projects for them, having a large AI community, having a strong CDO that promotes, that puts in place a strong AI practice and promotes data savviness across the organization. Having rich but tightly secure data and computing environment, learning and sharing opportunities. So for example, we know we have hackathons, internal conferences where the AI specialists can share their projects and learn from each other. We have training programs, Data Academy. So that's one of the first pillars aimed at the AI specialists themselves. The second would be aimed at the organization. You have to ensure that the organization has an agile and learning mindset itself. You have to ensure that within your organization, you are open to and willing to try new things out and learn from successes and failures alike. See them both as learning opportunities. Learn to prioritize use cases that create trust to begin with and flex that muscle of transformation and embrace your learnings as a joint operations and technology success. If you had asked me a few years ago what the major obstacles to AI adoption to creating value would be, I would have said, well, it's data, it's technology, désuétude, how you say, technical debt, followed by data, and then people and processes. Well, today I would reverse that. I would say, yes, data and technology are blockers, but then people and processes and the way we organize the work are actually some of the main obstacles that we have to overcome. And we have to make sure that whenever we choose a new opportunity, we have to strictly align ourselves with the business needs. We have to answer a true business need and to make sure that you can operationalize it up to the end and that your processes are able then to adapt in order to reap the value, the benefit of the innovation. Number 3 would be culture. Culture beyond this agility. When you hire from the get-go, you need to make sure that you promote your value. So National Bank is an inclusive bank with collaboration and inclusive leadership at its core, the human first. While driven by entrepreneurship, we evolve in a highly regulated environment and we are risk averse. Clients' trust is our most precious tool. So when you hire an AI specialist from the get-go, you have to make sure that they have a collaborative mindset, that they are pragmatic problem solvers, that they are able and excited by understanding the business needs and supporting them. And doing so might mean redefining what success means. If you have been able to trigger reflection around a process and simplify that, and yes, maybe technology was not the solution, but well, that is a joint success, and you have to reap the benefits regardless.
How do you make it sound so easy?
It's not. It's not.
It's a lot of work that goes into it, and all jokes aside, it kind of reminds me of some of the other phases of transformation that I'm sure many in the audience have been through, and those on the stage as well. When we looked at things like we need to bring in DevOps and cloud transformation, and we need to look at how we improve our testing teams and site reliability. It's kind of different phases as we've moved through the software development lifecycle to get to where we are today. And yes, we may have made advancements in things like in setting up chief data offices and having, cleaning up our data and our organization, but it's still, the same problems still ring. And it's leading large enterprises with lots of people. And people are complicated, and hiring the right people isn't always easy, and retaining them, but then having people aligned and how they communicate. So I think that culture piece is really actually a prime one, and we should probably touch on it and get some advice from the leaders on the stage. What role, Bill, how about we go to you? What role does culture have within your organization, and how do you try and kind of foster that as an organization?
Culture has a lot of different meanings, right? We talk about, often in our environment, we're talking about the culture of inclusion, which speaks to diversity, equity, and inclusion, so that people can be their authentic selves at work, so that they're not holding them back from disagreeing or just engaging more with the environment around them and their coworkers around them. So that's one piece of our culture. It's one of our core values. But we also, as Simona was saying, a culture of learning is very important. We have to recognize that the world is always moving forward. There's always something new to learn. And often we might come across a case, of course never where I work, but in some companies they might come across a case where they have some management people saying, oh, just whatever, we have some software people that can do software stuff, surely they can do this other new piece of technology with no problem, without thinking about they need to upskill, they need to learn. And that's an important part throughout the organization that we have, is those are two very important aspects of culture. Not even talking about Agile and how a team that's doing application development, can they be Agile? You need the positive culture in order for them, an open culture, in order for them to truly have a valuable exchange of ideas that can help us move forward.
And what are your thoughts on your side?
So I'll go back to AI and the change is going to have at PSP, but around the world, and the importance of being agile in an organization with the speed of change that will happen. So at PSP, we took a time in the last 3 years to try to find out what will be the impact of AI. And actually, the impact of AI won't be necessarily for PSP, it's going to be for society. So how can we allocate, invest in places that we're going to see basically the values of AI? So one of our key initiatives is to upskill everyone, because PSP, we want to become the most AI literate pension fund of the world. So it means that it's not only about technology, about data people, but it's about investor, it's about chief investment officer that understand AI, that leverage AI, and that can foresee the change that will happen. So what we've done from the culture perspective to make sure that we are learning is we started at the executive committee, and my president Deb is using Copilot on a daily basis, and we'll mention it to our different colleagues or to the employees. So it starts with the leader showing that we're okay experimenting. Experience come with failure as well, so we're going to be able to learn from the failure, but learning and upscaling will be key in the next few years for organizations like PSP, clearly.
So it's clear that a learning organization is important to the group we've got here, and I completely understand why. We've spoken at the beginning of how quickly we've moved to get to where we are today. And then it's the idea of we can't become complacent. Right? If we're already hit, well, great, we've achieved, it's the end. This is really infinite, what we're working towards, to continuously improve and always find ways to solve problems. And I think that a lot of that is actually the culture, having that innovation built in. I think it often comes from leaders who can manage their egos and kind of lead by example and show others what needs to follow. But I also think there's some actual specific initiatives I'm sure that different teams do as well. David, on your side, what kind of, you mentioned the learning part of the organization and how some of of your leaders alongside you have done these type of things. What other, on that kind of enterprise level, or whether it's maybe some specific teams, what have you done and implemented to keep those teams learning and training as they go?
So first, let me go about the culture at PSP. It's pretty simple. It's live the mission. It's excel together. It's be accountable. And for me, be accountable is in today's world, like I'm not supposed to teach what is prompting to everyone at PSP. Like you have YouTube, you have like Gen AI that can help you. So like I think accountability is to everyone at PSP, you need to be accountable on your learning journey as well. We will provide tools, and we are providing tool. Next week is actually our tech and data week, and we have like a number of like prompting technique course, Tableau, C# skill or training for everyone. But first and foremost, like be accountable. Like we all can learn from the internet. YouTube is like an amount of like information that is like beyond like everyone's like best course that we've ever seen. So like I want the culture of PSP that everyone is accountable to their own upskilling journey. We're going to support them, but like if we want truly to become the best and the most AI literate organization, everyone will need to be accountable of their own development on that regard. So.
That's great. And of course, we'll check if there's any other kind of initiatives that you could all think of as well that you'd like to share with us as well.
A couple of examples. So we have what we call the Data Academy, where we teach different courses and we have branch and learns on different topics. But what I love is when we organize hackathons, internal hackathons or innovation competitions. So we can launch a Women in AI hackathon, and then we invite students from everywhere to participate in a one-day hackathon, and we teach them some basic AI skills. Or we do an innovation competition on various topics. It might be hyper-automation in wealth management. And then people just come up with new ideas, and then we give them prizes, and they run with the project. They stretch their mandate beyond what they ever thought was possible. And it's really cool. And sometimes they fail, sometimes they don't, but it doesn't matter. We all learn together.
Yeah, I would just chime in to say that for hackathons, it's very much, it stimulates everybody's sort of ideas, which can lead to some great innovation, even if in their day job they're doing something completely different, if they're just working with ledgers or doing some accounting thing. But when they have the idea of working on a hackathon, it's a new skill set that they're getting, and hopefully they're having fun with it.
I think hackathons are great because you've got let's say, the high performers can lead from the front, right? In an environment where they can feel rewarded and they can feel successful and they can see what they're doing. But they get the chance to share knowledge, and those that are, maybe the laggards in the group can learn and understand and kind of feel that's what I need to move forward towards. So it's instead of it being you must do this, right? Command and control. You have to. I'm here with the group of people. I feel psychologically safe, and I'm going to learn and upskill alongside them.
If I could just chime in too, it also going back to the culture point. It helps quite a bit too, because you're helping, people are networking then sort of outside of the people that they might interact with on a day-to-day basis. And that goes back to belonging and inclusion and that sort of concept. But it also means that it's another avenue for learning rather than, where there are different videos or online courses or all sorts of things that might be available to them internally in the company. It just creates that more human interaction point.
So what I'm seeing here from our panelists is it's not one size fits all. There's loads of different ways to go about upskilling, but there's also a kind of a map that actually there's dotted lines that some people may not always connect within our companies. So Bill, you've referred a few times to diversity, equity, and inclusion. And when we actually had a moment to speak about this just previously, I was talking about how, to me, the North Star is actually inclusion and belonging, which is psychological safety. And if we're talking about building teams for a rapidly changing technology landscape, we want high-performing teams. And so this isn't just because it's nice to do. This is because it does drive performance, and everyone in our company having a chance to have a voice, right? So not just having access to the room or a seat at the table, but a voice at that table. Well, now we've got an extra team member. We had 10 people, one of them wasn't able to speak up. They didn't feel safe. There was no trust, right? There was no safety. if we can give access to that to all of our teams, we now have a 10th person who can solve problems. And to me, that's absolutely critical and so important as we do it. And it does bring me back when we're talking about things like, we've got different angles. We've got self-taught at home, YouTube, or study that when you've got 10-minute break. You've got group sessions, you've got hackathons, you've got lunch and learns. When I first, before I actually ever launched Strategio 3 years ago, before I ever did a client call or hired anybody, I thought, what are my values? What do I believe in? What do I want to drive people towards? And one of our core 8 values is to share knowledge. And that's why I do things like this, because it's not just, hey, I work for this company or run this company. It's I want to give a chance to connect with people and learn. And I want others to learn from that as well. And by doing that, we have a rising tide lifting all ships. And so I think that's a really good way of looking at it if we've got these different angles. Communities of excellence, a place where you feel a sense of belonging. A community, you're learning together and you're advancing as a company as well. So Bill, I want to go to you now. So you mentioned about 20 years or so you've been at Morgan Stanley. So
yes.
You've seen a few changes within the company. And we started in the beginning of where things are going, where technology is going next. But to get here, we went through a few things as well. What are some of the things you've seen change in the technology landscape in your time in technology and at Morgan Stanley?
They will. Obviously, we always have new technology, and we need to think about it as, earlier I referenced that when we have some new piece of technology that's really innovative, that there might be whole new roles that are formed for it. In Simona's world, there might be 10 new kinds of roles that she needs now with a different set of expertise and a different way of thinking. I've seen over time a big evolution from saying, okay, we just need some Java developers and just have them Java develop some Java things. Or say, okay, let's take somebody that, this person might be very good with web applications, but that doesn't matter, they're a developer, so surely they could do a bunch of database stuff. So seeing that sort of in the early 2000s in different places to today, where we recognize that different skill sets are needed with, it's a combination of needing different skill sets for the different jobs we have, whether we become more specialized and at times more generalized. For example, when I was a startup before joining Morgan Stanley, we were all automatically full stack developers. It's a startup. We were all developers. We had fun learning, figuring things out. And then over time, I found that in candidates we were recruiting, fast forward from that to, say, the 2010s, we had lots of candidates that were only specialized. It was very hard to find people that liked to do UI applications. They would be specialized on one aspect of application development. And now the trend these days, we see a lot more of like, oh no, this person is full stack. That is a unicorn. And it's kind of funny to see that we've gone from one direction to the other. I mean, now that full stack developers still may have no idea about infrastructure and routers and programming of the sort of deeper side of things. But now we talk about someone being more well-rounded. And I think that in my personal skill set, where I'm not somebody that day-to-day does application development, opening my IDE every day, unfortunately. But I scare people when I open my IDE. But why are you looking at code? What are you going to do? Don't touch that. But I find that it's evolved. That for myself, the continuous learning, it's been an important part of it. So these are just a few of the trends that I've seen that are different. And I think that the startup culture has influenced us in the larger organizations to think a little bit differently about how we approach a lot of things like learning. And I think that's where we've seen a really positive increase in focus on learning and upskilling and taking the time to learn more about, say, the business that you're working with or for a technical skill set.
If I can rebound on that as well. So before being head of technology, I was the head of corporate strategy at PSP. And like the impact of technology in the last 12 years, it's pretty like significant. So like my first strategy at PSP was Vision 2021, so it's been a while. But the word technology on the 86-page document was there once, right? So so like the strategy of PSP was about portfolio construction, total fund, but nothing about data or technology. We had like PSP Forward that you were seeing now technology taking a little bit more space. And in our new strategy that we came out like a few months ago, technology is actually like the biggest pillar to enable the new strategy, as well as talent. And as part of that talent, we do have the investor of the future. We do have like upskilling. So from one word in the strategy like 10 years ago to now being like a core enabler of the next strategy, that's where like I guess technology, data, and as now a place in a full corporation like pension fund, like a bank as well.
Yeah, so taking that a step further, in financial institutions broadly, technology was a regretted expense, right? Yeah. That costs us. That's not our core business. We do banking, we do wealth management, we do pension fund management, but realizing that that's really an integral part of what we do, that we can't survive without technology, I think is an important thing, even if sometimes people don't want to hear about the detail.
And I add my grain of salt on that. I mean, not grain of salt, but my point of view. I think that what is happening now with the arrival of AI and now this incredibly fast development of new democratized low-code, Gen AI, hyper-automation tool, the technology is less viewed as an infrastructure cost, as you say. It is viewed as a value enabler. It is becoming part of the value generation stream. So the boundary between business and technology tends to be more and more blurred. So it's less, it's more and more not just a tool, it's more and more a core value creation enabler. With that in mind, it's really important to drive grassroots innovation across the board, because these kind of tools are enabling each and every one of us to create value. So specialization, yes, it's still important, but with all these tools at our fingertips, anybody can innovate using them.
And just one of the points you brought up about business technology collaboration, that's where even though the Agile methodology is not a new concept, I still find that it's sometimes enlightening when business individuals become a product owner working closely with a technology team that supports them, that it's again adding to the diversity of thought, that we've got somebody who's pure business coming into it working with tech, that we get a lot of interesting ideas out of it.
It's completely true in that we have to constantly think about ways to move forward. We have to think about ways to retain this talent now, keep them as part of our teams. We've got to get them to want to join us. And some of the things we talk about here is the idea of, well, a large, let's say a financial service company, a bank, an investment management company, and getting modern, new, like early talent even to want to come to join these companies. And I'm sure that's something, I see heads nodding in the room, it's probably something that people think about. It's, well, if I'm a computer science graduate, I'm going to go and try and join Netflix or Google or Microsoft. It's a lot of the time like the things I hear in the industry. And it's about trying to actually show, well, transformation is interesting as well. And trying to operate within the constraints of some of these environments is interesting. And it doesn't mean that's not modern technology, it's just that the challenge is different. And when you're looking at ways to get talent to work together, it's realizing that, you mentioned the business and the technology kind of both coming together. It's thinking about what the outcomes we're looking towards, like what's the business problem. In the past, it might have been the business thought, it's just a developer. And as well, it might have been that technologists thought, well, we're the smart ones and that's the business, right? It might have been both sides doing that.
They don't know what they're doing.
Right, like what are they? They're the business, what do they know? It's like, the business is like, well, we're running this thing, right? We need to go towards, so getting the two things to combine, right? And this idea that there needs to be some element of a wall in certain ways, because you don't want someone from maybe business team clicking and making in the IDE going, let's start writing code. But at the same time, you need to make sure that the technology teams are thinking, why does this matter? Who am I delivering this for? Or who is my customer? What do they really need? And it's not, let me just create the most complicated application that's very smart. It's about sometimes simplifying. How can I make this easy for the tens and tens or hundreds of other people that will interact with this application, or thousands even, in the future? But let's think about some of those constraints. So you're working in a very advanced area of technology when we're thinking of financial services in terms of natural language processing and AI. Now, how do you balance and push forward with this blend of speed and quality while also staying within those constraints of risk and regulatory compliance of financial services?
So first and foremost, we have to have a strictly secured and rich work environment for people to experiment with. So data security and governance are adamant. We work, for example, on with anonymized data in a strictly secured cloud computing environment. We would experiment in sandbox test environments before putting anything in production, of course, thoroughly. So we have very strong data governance and fairness and privacy by design policies enforced within the company. But once you create the secure environment, you can evolve within and you can experiment and you can have lots of challenging innovation opportunities. So for example, generative AI. Well, generative AI, those voice bots, chat bots, I'm in the contact center. Imagine the wealth of opportunities there. But we decided that generative AI was not to be client-facing. We are using it internally, though, for knowledge management, knowledge access, insights extraction from call transcriptions. So there is a wealth of opportunities to be exploited within those secure boundaries. The second aspect is, again, and I must say, in order to be able to exploit AI within these secure boundaries, you have to have a learning and agile culture. And you have to be acutely aware of operationalization requirements. To be able to operationalize any solution that you're bringing forward, it has to be answering a business requirement, and it has to be the ripeness for change absorption and process change has to be there. And I'll give you another example. So say we wanted to now eliminate all those annoying menus that you get to pick one. Say if you want to do ABC, do press on 1. If you do want to do XYZ, press on 2, and so on. And replace all that with how may I help you question on the phone. Well, beyond not, and you want to do that, say, with a traditional voice bot. I can't believe I'm saying traditional AI anyways. So not Gen AI. Well, from a technology viewpoint, easy. From a process point of view, much harder, because changing any of those menus is tied into the skills that you've attributed to your agents and all the training material and the way you organize your schedule around covering all those options. So you pull on a thread and there is a whole organizational complexity that you have to pull apart in order to be able to evaluate. So you have to teach this agility of being open to changing a bunch of things to explore and to push forward. So you have to combine these two, the secure environment with the agile culture and learning culture within the company.
On the risk side, clearly, a pension fund is not that much regulated, but in the last 2 years, I fought my chief risk officer, my chief legal officer, and they all agree at the end that the biggest risk for PSP is to actually not leverage AI. So it's not the risk that AI is adding to your organization, it's just that PSP, we are not able to really leverage AI, really understand what AI will have. So that is the biggest risk around AI. And the boards are easy to ask you all the kind of question. If you're using AI, what about gender problems that will come with the algorithm, which we understand, but AI won't replace humans. AI will supercharge PSP employees in order to maximize returns. So AI won't invest on behalf of PSP. So we want to make sure that the biggest and single most important risk is that we are not leveraging AI as much as the others will, so that we want to become the best. So that is the risk, and that's one of the things that we want to keep putting pressure on the organization, that we understand that this is where we need to go. So let's not focus on risk. Risks are important, but let's focus on what AI will bring to PSP.
Now that's interesting to get the two ends of the spectrum, right? And that's the beauty. We're not just saying, this topic just for banking, right? We're talking about financial services as an industry, and to hear your perspective on like, you've got to move quickly, right? Like that time is the killer, really. And at the same time, hearing from your side, Simona, the level of freedom that you can create with great controls and constraints around it in that sandbox environment, and then really being able to make changes quickly and drive forward, probably create really good proof of concepts, present them to the team, and then get those things approved. And again, if you can show that, for example, where you mentioned with like let's say the older way of having a chatbot versus the ways that you can do it with Gen AI, the customer service is so much better, right? And so then you're going to naturally have more customers retaining, answering their problems a lot faster, and not needing to go to maybe a fintech chasing you down for that same type of service. So I completely see the two different ways it would work. Now, one thing that, as a panel, I know that we've all kind of mentioned at times that this is important to us as also our organizations. We've mentioned diversity, equity, and inclusion. And I want to think about not just like the words and say, okay, we think that because it's the right thing to say. I think we should think about how do we foster diverse and inclusive environments within our organizations? What are some of the initiatives we've done, and maybe some of the successes that you can kind of share with us and help us all learn as an audience? How about Simona?
So we strongly believe that in order to serve and support our communities, we have to be able to represent them adequately in terms of diversity. We have to, and we're proud to be able to employ people of different age groups, of different origins, different gender identities or sexual orientation. And we are actively promoting these values within all of the teams at the bank and in dedicated committees. So, for example, we're choosing to actively support, to get involved in initiatives such as be present in schools and universities. I've been myself in different schools and promoting science for girls and encouraging them to embrace a career in science and technology. We support organizations that support women, that support indigenous people, that support persons with disabilities, and that's part of our day-to-day culture. Yeah.
Thank you.
I'd have to say, for us, it's very similar, if not exactly the same. That diversity and inclusion is one of the core values of Morgan Stanley, and it was added mostly after there was a realization that this was already part of what we do. Why would we not make this a core value? We have employee networking groups, affinity groups for people that identify with one of the different underrepresented communities or that support them. Allyship is a key engagement that's needed for anyone in these groups, and that's where we talk about creating a team where everyone feels included. A lot of that might be because of allyship, and openness to understanding that people are different, and we need to accept that. So I would say that's a lot of it. Another core value that we have is giving back to the communities that we're a part of. And much like you, we have big initiatives that we're involved with globally, different locations, where we try to look at, well, what makes sense in this location for our community. So a popular one, for example, is Girls Who Code, that we do externally, working with young girls that are interested in STEM, that might want to learn about programming earlier on in life, giving people exposure to possibilities for their lives later on professionally.
And I think we're all similar, so like I won't have to think maybe different things. As I believe, and especially as the Chief Data Officer of PSP, that like data is pretty important on that subject. So we're working hard with HR to have like a true understanding of how diversified the different teams are. Clearly, like in tech and investing, gender diversity is clearly an imbalance. So you need to measure it. We have goals. You need to have quotas potentially if you really want to become like a diversified team. That's one of the things that we're going to make there. So by measuring it, by having like as well like measure success on the long term, because it's a journey, right? So like, but that's the way we're going to do it. And I feel we're pretty good on that, but we need to work on it on a daily basis.
And I'd say that's something that makes people uncomfortable sometimes, that we need to know where we are, and we need to measure that so we can show progress. How else are we going to show progress? And that sometimes makes people uncomfortable of like, well, why are you counting this thing? Why are you counting how many women are here? Why are you singling them out? And it's like, well, actually, we're looking at being able to show that we're improving over time, that we're doing a better job, that we're going through the extra effort to engage with underrepresented communities to offer them a career path.
And this is where actually animating these concepts and values organically within the teams becomes crucial, because if you just impose a corporate self-identification program there so you can track your KPIs and your progress, where you're starting from and where you're going, if you don't explain the deeply rooted meaning behind it and the intention behind it, and you do this one-on-one meetings.
If you do it top down, right, it should be at all levels.
Yeah.
No, I think that it's worth sharing with you all as an audience. You know, if anyone's listening and thinking, like, is there a place for me in financial services technology? Just know that this is not, like, we've gone past words, I believe, now, and most companies do want to create a space for you. And there's a lot of groups out there, and there's places, whether you maybe you don't have the correct skills yet. There's training programs. There's ways for you to get upskilled. There's various opportunities. You don't have to necessarily be a software engineer or a data scientist to make your way in. There's various different roles ranging in technical ability. And from my side and at Strategio, this is very important to us as well. So for sure, look up what we do in this space in terms of diversity and inclusion in our training programs and scholarships, because this is exactly our business, to make sure we provide a space and create opportunity, and then give those kind of workforce roles within large financial services companies. So for sure, we're listening and hearing, and we want to make sure that the industry keeps pushing that direction. And in about 1 minute, I'm going to open up for a couple of minutes of questions for the audience, so start racking your brains now. I had one last question, which was going to be about the way leadership has changed and some of those leadership challenges that you faced. Bill, I want to make sure I come to you with this one initially. What leadership challenges have you faced now in this time of rapid change?
I would say, and this may sound strange, it may not sound like a leadership challenge, but I think it's been a realization as we're talking about looking forward, upskilling, creating opportunities for people to do that, making sure teams can function well, is modernizing the technology that we have. For us, modernization is 3 pillars. Obviously, there's the modern technologies, modern architecture, and modern methodologies, processes, because you can only move as fast as the slowest part that you have in your technology plant. I've often likened that to when I was explaining to within a smaller team, okay, what does it mean that we have this nice new technology? We can't, but then we've got this fleet of shipping trucks that are our midterm software stack that we've got, and then behind that we've got a farm truck filled with coconuts that keep falling off the truck, and we can't go as fast as this like Ferrari because we still have to move slowly enough to keep that old infrastructure moving along. So we think a lot about modernizing. I think that what I've seen in the past few years, that's become more of a leadership challenge that people are rising to.
Now, I would love to ask you, David, and Simona, but I'm going to just make sure we give room for the audience to ask any questions. So I think we've got a microphone over here. So if you want to put your hands up if you've got any questions, and we'll make sure we come over to you. And you don't have to be afraid.
We're supposed to plant.
Over here. We've got somebody over there.
Hi, it's a question to Simona. It's funny you mentioned hackathons. What value you put on it? I'm a professor at McGill University. We are organizing an asset management hackathon. It's first in asset management. And I was just wondering, we have a lot of interest, but not from finance. What do you think about you're a financial institution, what do you think about finance-driven hackathon? What would be your approach?
So I mentioned hackathons in the context of technology and AI. Indeed, you're right. That was mainly the scope of hackathons that we have been driven. So coding, using machine learning for this and this and this task, exploit data value creation, and hyper-automation. But you're absolutely right, hackathon, and we've found them extremely valuable to create this innovation mindset, to create the confidence of going outside your boundaries to learn. So expanding that on other fields would be totally valuable and interesting to us, absolutely, and I think we should expand.
But that's the one thing we're struggling at PSP. Like hackathon remains a technology lens, like bringing the investor with us. It's the hard part of the situation, and we clearly we did not manage to crack it. How can we make sure that the investors, the other people outside technology, comes with us and really innovate and play with GitHub Copilot. So that's going to be the biggest challenge. And on that, Ross, I'll confirm that I'll be the judge at your hackathon in October.
That was my next question.
Yeah, I know you were going for that, so I'll confirm it's going to be me.
So beyond making sure that the hackathon actually answer business questions, pushing that even one step further, and maybe there's an opportunity for us to play together on the next hackathon.
Yes.
And just adding, with a hackathon, some of it is what's your goal with the hackathon? Are you doing internal raising awareness about a new piece of technology or what a specific type of team might have an expertise in? Are you doing it externally with universities to provide an opportunity for students to participate, that they see what practical applications might look like in the real world, although they're not always super practical, the hackathons. It depends on the subject. But it also creates that engagement. A lot of that there. It starts more of a dialogue.
So we've got about 30 seconds up here on this side. I wonder if we could try and squeeze in one more question and maybe get told off. But no, we're OK, I think. There's one more.
Go on all the way up. I'm coming to you, buddy. I got you.
All the way in the back. There we go.
Thank you. Hello. Thanks for this nice talk. I'm a Scrum Master and Agile coach, and I had some experience with business teams. And I would like to have your return of experience about how the business side is welcoming Agile, and do you have any return of experience of the value that was brought? Earlier, you talked about product owner becoming a great, I would say, vector for value creation. So can you add more to that? Thanks.
Sure. It looks like we're out of time. Can I go ahead and answer briefly? There is a tremendous amount of value. Level of engagement really depends upon the, sometimes you have to educate a little bit more to get the necessary engagement so that you can make it more valuable. Sometimes, you have to slow down the business partner who wants to be deep in the weeds on everything, that really wants to get involved. So I would say that it really depends upon, a lot of times, the individual and their openness to learning and changing a bit their process and how they engage.
And for me, agility is about being business-led. That's going to be the challenge of having a true PO within the business, but that is the role of agility, is that the business is supporting, how can we prioritize, or how can we help change them, and that's going to be the challenge.
Yeah, I'm sorry, one quick value add I thought of when he was speaking earlier, is that by being agile and failing fast and having more quick reviews of how the product is progressing, we find that we have a lot less wasted time with IT goes away for 6 months and builds something, and then the business says, wait, this isn't what I wanted. So we find that quicker communication cycle brings a huge amount of value.
Great. Thanks for the two questions, and apologies we didn't have much more time. And I believe that's our time on this side. Thank you.